What's good, everyone? Welcome back to the Work to Create podcast. I'm your host, Colton Bacher. This is season 1, episode 4. Today's episode was inspired by a conversation I had with my good buddy, Scotty Postal. It's all about a video that had both of us feeling incredibly heard. It's called The Gap, based on a quote by Ira Glass and the original video created by David Shiyang Liu over 12 years ago. And even though it's a decade old, this video still shook me when I realized what it was touching on. This is what timeless art looks like, ladies and gents. This episode is for anyone who has ever looked at their work and thought, why doesn't this feel as good as the version I had in my head? If you've felt this gap between your vision and your execution, I promise you don't want to miss this one. Let's go.
I done came up, went through the ups and downs, but I stayed tough. Never took a shortcut and never gave up. This time around, I'ma stay up.
Man, life has been pretty wild lately. I'm not gonna lie, my head is spinning right now with all the different projects I have going on. I haven't been home for the last 4 weekends in a row, and it's about to be 5 and then 6 weekends of not being home in a row. So yeah, this is literally being recorded the same day that's being released, but we're getting it out no matter what. Yeah, I was up till 5 a.m. last night trying to meet a deadline for a client. Yeah. Oh, and I have this issue with my wrists and hands where I have a ton of tendonitis acting up, and I can't not edit and stuff, so that's been a bit of a struggle. But I've been finding some solutions. There's this shout out Kyle Reiki for pointing me in the direction of what's called a tour box, and essentially it's an editing console for Premiere Pro, After Effects, and any software that you're editing in. And then I got the Apple touchpad, Magic Touchpad or whatever, to kind of just eliminate the need for a keyboard and a mouse, and just kind of give my hands and wrists a bit of a break. So yeah, I've been going through it. Oh, and I leave for Abu Dhabi tomorrow. But super grateful, super grateful. Let's get into this episode. Oh my gosh, I'm so stoked on this. All right, if you have not seen this video, the link will be in the description and the show notes. It's a must watch. So you can either go watch it now, or if you're not able to, go and check it out after this episode. But it literally shook me to my core, and I felt so heard, like I said, when I watched this the first time. Essentially, the core concept is the space between your taste and your abilities to make something that lives up to that standard. So essentially, your taste is the idea in your head. It's the way that you envision this video or photo or piece of art living out in the world, completely finished, for everyone to see. That's your taste. And you're going to make a lot of creative decisions and all of that stuff in your head. And all of those culminations, everything together, is your taste. But then you have your abilities. So, for example, if you're a beginner, a lot of your technical abilities and your storytelling skills are probably not going to be anywhere near your vision, anywhere near the idea that you have in your head. And when I first heard about the gap and Scotty was just talking to me about it, I was like, this is crazy relatable. I never really knew how to describe this gap between the idea and then my abilities, but I think this is just a perfect example. And so the words that you hear, the dialogue in the video, is written by Ira Glass. And essentially they're saying we start with good taste, but our skills take time to catch up. Super interesting. And we're going to go super deep here. So The gap was created by Ira for himself, but ended up speaking to everyone. So, and I think this is really important. There's an opening text in the video, and it says, "For everyone who is in doubt." And then I think the more important text that comes after that is, "Especially for myself." So that's the power of art. It can be both a coping mechanism and a gift, and I think this is a super underrated fact. So the coping mechanism is us as an artist, like, so me and you as an artist, creating art because we feel the need to express ourselves in some way to the world. Okay. So that's like us coping with this deep desire to make stuff. Okay. And then the gift is that once we've created this idea and made it a reality, now we can share that with other people. And so that art can then, for example, the opening text, "For everyone who's in doubt," it can encourage people. It can give people hope. It can make people feel heard, like Scotty and I. Uh, and I just believe that's so, so powerful. And this kind of leads me to how I believe artists don't just want to make things. We need to make things. It's a part of who we are, is this deep need for creating things and getting our ideas out into the world. And so, for example, like, my wife, she's she's not the most creative person, and so anytime I'm trying to explain a creative thing to a non-creative person, this is kind of how I start. I say, "It's like an itch in your brain that can only be scratched by putting the idea out into the world." And like, this itch will just kind of just sit in the back of our heads for days, years, like, doesn't matter. It'll just always be there until we act on it, create that thing, and put it out into the world. And this, especially at this point in my career, this was super, super relevant because right now, despite the video kind of framing it as someone who's starting out, I still feel this massive gap between the stories I want to tell, the art I want to put out into the world, and my ability to create it. And so, like, I've been prioritizing a lot of learning over creating stuff for myself. For example, learning Unreal Engine, and I'm diving into learning how to color in DaVinci Resolve, stuff like that. I've been prioritizing because in my mind, those are kind of the most obvious things that will improve my work. But what I'm also beginning to realize is that I haven't created work for myself in a long time. I don't even remember the last piece of content. Not even content, because content I don't really count. But like, the last time I've created a piece of work, a video that is just purely for me, I can't even remember the last time. And it's left me feeling really disconnected with my work. It's a weird feeling. It's because you would think with all the videos that I'm doing that, the fulfillment would kind of be baked into that. But what I'm realizing, even though I'm making money, I have clients, I'm traveling, all those things, I still have this itch. I feel like there's this gap in my work where, I don't know, just doesn't feel like me yet. And I don't know, maybe that comes to a surprise to some of you, maybe it doesn't, which is the work you've seen from me in the past. But yeah, I don't know. I don't think that I've reached a point with my work where I can confidently say it's 100% me. And so now I want to kind of dive into like why this is so important, why the impact of art is overlooked in kind of today's environment. And one of those reasons, I think, is social media content's short life cycle, and it makes the creative process feel almost disposable. Like, it's, for example, like if you've ever posted a reel and like a lot of times you'll know that if it does good, like if it's going to do good, it will take off in the first, 5, 10, 30 minutes, right? And but then 24 hours later, unless it's gone viral, it's pretty much dead in the water. It's not really gonna go anywhere else. Um, and like I said, it really takes some strong engagement and traction for a post to live longer than 24 hours. Instagram stories, perfect example, only lasts 24 hours. And so I think that definitely hurts and hinders a lot of our work and a lot of our art. Same with trends. Trends are most attractive to artists because our deepest desire is for our work to be seen. So we want people to see our work, and trends are usually the easiest way to kind of like piggyback off that trend and get a bunch of views. But that trend doesn't really aid in the creation of our art. It's we'll create a version of that trend that is us, but it's not 100% the message that we would send or tell, or the thing that we would choose to create if we had infinite amounts of time, right? I think also another hindrance or variable that has an effect on all this is the algorithms. They often create an echo chamber based on what we have liked in the past. So you like yeah, you like a little a reel about kittens, and all of a sudden there's 50 reels of kittens in your feed. I know you know what I'm talking about, especially with TikTok. It's pretty wild how quick it picks up on it. But I don't think that that's necessarily a healthy thing for our art. And I'll explain more. So it's my belief that for an artist to make their best work, they need to have a wide variety of experiences to pull from, both positive and negative experiences. So on social media specifically, we usually only see what we want to see, i.e., liking a post, reposting, sending to a friend, whatever. Then the algorithm picks up on it, blah, 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 blah. Instead, what if we walk down the street and by chance we talked to a stranger, noticed some little details on a building, or even just smelled food being cooked from a restaurant nearby? In that situation, any of those chance encounters could open up a world of possibilities that are directly applicable to the next story that you want to tell. On social media, I don't think that happens as often because we're just scrolling, and most of it we're not really even consuming at all or remembering or anything like that. And I think it's those real life experiences that really drive home whatever it is, whatever sticks out to you. And I think as artists, we're really good at observing the world and kind of taking bits and pieces of the things that we admire or that interest us. And yeah, so I don't know. That's kind of my point of view on all of that. It's I don't know. It's frustrating because at the end of the day, I believe also that social media is a tool and that it is absolutely necessary to running a creative business. There is no denying that, but it's a double-edged sword. So just I don't know, just let that sit with you. Take that into consideration. Uh, I can say from experience that my real life IRL experiences have always been the most impactful, and I definitely think that those experiences have molded me as a person way more so than any experience I've had on social media. And I think that, like I said, those experiences can be directly applicable to the next story that you tell. So a great example is, let's just say you go and have like an authentic Japanese or Chinese meal, right? There's going to be certain details to that meal that are directly tied to Japanese or Chinese culture. And then let's say you want to tell a story that takes place in one of those countries. Now, from your personal experience, you know what details to include that will make that video feel authentic to someone from that culture. And I think that's like the most powerful thing that we don't really talk about, or that, I don't know, does anyone like, I know that we say experiences are like important, but that part of it right there, as a storyteller, as a filmmaker, as a photographer, as any artist, I think that's super underrated. So kind of diving back into this video, the gap there. So I think that there's, it's basically inspiration versus selective consumption. So like in the video, it's saying that early in your career, you need to just make as much work as possible. And you just need to keep going and keep pushing despite your art not meeting your expectations over and over and over. And to parallel that, I think that early in your career, it's really important to consume as much art as you can. And I say that because you need to get a gauge for your taste. There will be videos that stick out to you, and in the beginning, it's going to be a lot of them. In the beginning, the majority of the things that you see are going to be inspiring and are going to light you up, and they're going to spark ideas. And I think that's why it's so important early on to just consume. But over time, my filter, for example, in my case, my filter for what inspires or intrigues me becomes more fine-tuned. And what I mean by this is, now when I'm looking for inspiration, or not even looking for inspiration, the pieces of work that I see, it's either it's interesting or it's not. And on the majority of times it's not, just because my taste has developed over time. So my current creative process consists of moments where I sit down with intention and commit all my attention and energy into absorbing a movie or a video that someone created, and really focus on the details that I believe that make that video good or bad. And so I think as you get older and you see more and more work, you're less interested in all the noise, and you're more interested in something that caught your eye and you're not really sure why, but now it's time to dive in and figure out why. And I think that's where your taste develops. And I believe that developing your taste and focusing on this process and understanding this process is extremely important because of the rise of AI. And I know, quite the buzzword, AI. But with the rise of AI, the threshold for making art is getting lower. So it doesn't take a crazy amount of technical skills now to create something really good and really powerful. And so the value will soon be primarily in someone's ability to curate a piece of work to evoke a specific feeling. So it's the value in the future when the ability to create something unbelievably, complex is going to be easier and easier and less difficult than it is today, the value will be in taste. It will be in your taste, your ability to curate a group of pieces together that talk to each other, or a piece of work to evoke a specific feeling. So, let's because it's one thing to create something cool. It's one thing to create something very complex and beautiful, but with the intention of making someone feel a certain way is what takes that work to an entirely another level, and arguably a game-changing level. Okay? And so that's why developing your taste is so important. And I believe it will become more important over time, which is why I think this conversation is so relevant. And honestly, it fires me up. It's exciting because I think one of my strengths as a creative is my taste. And as an aspiring director, I think that's incredibly powerful. And I'm excited to continue to flex and grow those muscles of knowing if I like something or not and why. I don't know. Yeah, gets me fired up. And I think it should get you guys fired up as well. Like, it's exciting to know that you have a certain style or direction. And I think that's what empowers us to continue to keep going and pushing our limits and all of those things. And, obviously, the theme of this podcast is putting in the work to create something amazing. So, yeah, this next part is silence is okay, but there's like another piece to this. Okay, so I know this quite the start to this section. I know. Sometimes the best thing for creativity is not consuming, and this goes against everything that we just talked about. Okay, I'll give you an example in my own life. Basically, there was a 2-year period, and I honestly probably just got out of it, where I didn't find anyone's work interesting. No one's. Doesn't matter what I saw, including my own work. Just nothing fired me up. Nothing created that spark for whatever reason. And I mean, a lot of it was due to burnout, for sure. But I think it was a necessary moment in my career to really figure out what I'm interested in and the direction that I'm going. And so when I say this, that the best thing for creativity is sometimes not consuming, what happens when you're not consuming? You're living in the real world. You're going out and having experiences. And I think that is where the power comes from. So be hyper aware of ideas that come to you during your downtime. So when you're out in the real world and you're observing things and something catches your eye, we need to be hyper aware of that moment. If you're inspired to create something, then create it for you and for you only. So whatever that spark is, whatever that idea that just gets sent from God or the universe right into your dome piece, and now you got that itch you can't get rid of, I'm telling you, the sooner you can take action, the better. And you'll never, ever regret taking action on that idea. And I think that's just crazy, crazy powerful. So kind of like I've already said, but like my largest shortcoming at the moment is that I don't create any work for myself right now. I've been prioritizing learning new skills and software, and as a result, I feel this gap in my work and in my fulfillment. It feels like a lot of the stuff that I make isn't really mine, or that I'm creating anything that stands out amongst the noise. And I know I already said this, but like that is why it's so important to be hyper aware of what we're consuming, where we're consuming it. I'm just gonna leave it there. All right. Enough of like the doom and gloom. Let's talk about why we keep going. Okay. As Ira points out, we know that we have good taste. We know that. It's all of the ideas that we know are good. We don't really know why or how, but we have this vision. This results in lots and lots of disappointment as a beginner, and often people never make it out of this phase. So you might be listening to this right now, and you're one of those people that just didn't make it past that phase, and now you have a 9 to 5 job, or you're not doing exactly what you started out trying to do. And, you know, that's definitely a bummer, but hear me out, okay? If you're a beginner right now, you have to know how important it is for you to fail. An important note as someone who makes creative work is that we don't do this because we want to become rich or famous. The creation of art is a brutal and unforgiving process. And if you stick with it over a long period of time, the only explanation is that you have a message you want to express to the world. Okay. Now, coming back to the people that might be at their 9 to 5 and, they kind of threw in the towel. This is not the end all be all for you. And I think, honestly, even though you might view it as a failure, you're now in the real world, working a job, interacting with people, and that's an experience. That's an experience you can use later on if you choose to kind of pick things back up. All right. Here's where I'm going to leave you guys with here. And this is why we keep going. If you've got that creative itch and you walk away from it because your work doesn't feel good enough, you will regret it. Your creative fire will turn to a smolder and eventually go out. No matter how many years it takes, it's so important that you never, ever give up. All your failures along the way will only make for more interesting stories down the line. I'll let that just sink in for a little bit. All your failures along the way will only make for more interesting stories down the line. And this truth has clearly lasted over a decade. The Gap, the video, was released more than 12 years ago. Every time I revisit it, it hits harder than the time before that. That's the power of a message that speaks to the heart of every creative journey. So please do not stop. Keep chasing that feeling, because your work, your best work, is still ahead of you. Whew, that's some heavy, heavy shit, ladies and gents. My gosh. All right. And let's jump into some a little bit more lighthearted, but honestly might still be a little triggering to some of you. This is the hot take segment. And oh boy, I got a spicy one for you guys. Essentially, I don't believe that if you're an artist and you go on to a stage to perform and you're lip syncing or not even singing at all, I don't think you should be on that stage. I don't think you deserve to be there. And what I have here in a quote is, if you're a rapper that doesn't actually perform live, get off the fucking stage. I was clearly triggered. And I'm sorry for some of you that might be fans of Yeet, but I watched his Coachella performance and he just yelled into the mic. Same with Travis Scott. I don't know. Maybe I'm missing something, but I don't believe this is a listening party. If you wanted to hear the Spotify version, just stay at home. You're on a stage to perform, And I just think it's like extremely unprofessional and lazy to go on a stage in front of thousands of people and not put on the best possible performance that you can and create the best possible experience for the fans that paid lots of money and spent lots of time to come and see you. I don't know. I think it's super disrespectful. And I don't know, if you're in tune with pop culture and hip hop, I don't know. Someone explain it to me, because that shit irks me, dude. Irks me. And I will never work with someone who's like, who does something like that. That's crazy, man. I don't know. So I don't know. Let me know your guys' opinions. Am I out of pocket for saying this, or am I on track? I don't know. It's super interesting, really annoying. And I'm only interested in working with clients and artists that want to do their best every single time. I think we talked about it in the episode before this. Like, there is no situation in which you should not be trying your absolute best. You want it to be the best experience possible. You want to make the best video possible. You want to take the best photo possible at all times. If you're not going to do it 100%, like, and like, for example, we touched on people that might be at a 9 to 5 and they're aspiring to go full time with the creative stuff. That doesn't mean you're not in it 100%. You can sit down after work and put in 100% of your time and focus in that moment to learn and grow and eventually, take that leap. But for you to be in that position on that stage and you think it's the cool thing to do to just yell and jump around and scam your fans. Yeah, no thank you. All right, we're going to the Q&A section, and I only prepped one question for this, but it's a heavy hitter. It's from my good buddy Matt Trico. All right, he asks, how do you navigate the race between you and the client to ask what the rate or budget is? For example, you ask the client what the budget is, and they respond by asking what your rate is instead. That feels kind of unprofessional. And so what do you do in this situation? Yikes, dude. I can just feel everyone that heard that just like tense their shoulders, and they're like, oh my God, I hate this. It does blow to be in a situation like this. And okay. Goddamn. So in this situation, if the client responds, so okay, let's just say that you are the first one to say, do you mind, like, what is the budget for this project? And normally I would not recommend asking that question that simply, because you know how, like, when you're interviewing someone, you never want to ask them a question that it directly leads to a yes or no. You want them to expand. You want them to create like full sentences. So when we ask the client what the budget is, and let's just say this is a new client, because usually with existing clients, this conversation is a little bit less intense, less intense. But let's say it's a new client and you ask the budget, and then you can be like, the reason I need to understand the budget is because there's a lot of variables that are going to come into play in order for me to get this project completed. And then you can like even create like a little bit of a list of like, we're going to have to do lighting. We're going to have PAs. We're going to have gaffers. We're going to have, power on site, whatever it is, right? Like there's a ton of variables. So it's more about framing it so that you can be like, hey, I just want to make sure your money is spent as efficiently as possible and so that we can create the best possible product, the end product for you guys, for the client, right? So that's like the idea that you have to convey, and I'll kind of leave it up to you guys in terms of wording. But I think that's where we run into trouble, is when we're just simply like, what's the budget for this project? And then the client is like, well, what do you normally charge? Like, those are two very simple, like, but conflicting questions. And so I think if we lead with something a little bit more empathetic to what the client is feeling, and the people that they have to please, I think we can then almost completely avoid the response of like, what is your normal rate? And if you want to be super cheeky, just include in your question about budget, like, don't include your actual, like, the money version of your rate, but just be like, and I'll be running camera and directing, but thankfully that'll just be one rate instead of two because I'm doing both jobs. So you can kind of see how you like frame it, how already they're saving money because you can wear two hats. So it's like just using little, what's the word? You're just using like little bits of like emotional intelligence to kind of just like make them feel heard, and then kind of like get them to take their guard down when you're having this conversation. But I do believe that like it is really frustrating when they respond with like, well, what is your rate in this situation? So like, let's just say you ask what is the budget for this project straight up, and then they respond with by asking what your rate is. Do not by any means respond with any level of aggression. Don't start your email with respect, like respectively, or respect. What am I even saying? Respectfully? Yeah, respectfully. Jesus Christ. Yeah, you can tell my brain is fried right now. Okay, so don't respond aggressively and say like, respectfully, blah 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 blah. I asked you what the budget was first. Like, don't give them any hint of aggression. What you need to respond with is, well, like, my normal. Well, okay, no. What I would recommend. Sorry for being so scatterbrained right now, guys. What I would respond with is a way higher rate than what your normal rate is. And honestly, I wouldn't even give too much of an explanation or anything. I'm just like, yeah, under normal circumstances for this year, this is what my rate is. And I would bump it anywhere from like 25 to 50% above what you normally do. See what they say. Because the thing is they did ask for your rate. And you could always give them your rate and then put at the end, just underneath that in the email, like, despite my rate, my most important, or, like, the most important thing is that we get this project done for you and we get it done right. So, however you want to word that, just let them know that you're open to working with them and finding a solution so that you can work together. But that's why you give them an extremely high rate if they ask, because you're basically what you can do is like give them 50% higher rate than what you normally charge. Then you open the door for the conversation to bring it down, and who knows, maybe you'll even get because best case scenario, they're like, yeah, that rate's great. This is perfect. Let's move forward. Now you just made a whole bunch of extra money. Or they walk you down like, I don't know, 15%, maybe a little bit more. But you're still making way more than you would have had you given them your actual rate. So that's like it's a give and take scenario. And you kind of just gotta play ball, and don't let your emotions. I know as creatives we're very emotional people, but yeah, don't don't allow that to hinder your ability to close the deal. Because at the end of the day, we are businesses and we need that money to survive. So close the deal, like, and just use like little tactics like that to absolutely crush it, and lock it in. All right. Hopefully that was helpful. This has been the Work to Create podcast. If you haven't yet, please check out my newsletter. It's called A Work in Progress, just in case you don't have time for an hour-long podcast. I send over emails that can be read and digested in under 2 minutes. So super quick, easy. The link is in the description and the show notes. If you found what you heard today valuable, even just a little, please consider liking, subscribing, following, commenting, and even leaving a review on your podcast app of choice. It really helps podcasts get discovered, and hopefully, as a result, we can help more people. Your support means the world. Work to create, work to inspire, and I will see you next time.
I'm on a roll like a jalopy with the brakes cut. I done came up. Back then I had to